This week's episode of The Drake Shake is going to be a little different from our usual show. Neil and I agreed that jumping directly into a regular episode after all that has unfolded would be disingenuous. We will use this opportunity to address some rumors, as well as share pieces of the experience from my point of view. My name is Nikki, and I was a passenger on board the MV Hondius.
I don't even know where to begin this episode. I feel bad that we're laughing because it's a serious subject, but I think it's a good one. And I think that people are going to be really excited to hear from you. So
yeah. Hi,
you
everybody.
You good with this?
I'm
all
ready.
Right.
Yeah.
Should we start off in like normal fashion and say like, welcome everybody to the newest episode of the Drake Shake podcast. My name is Neil Drake and I'll be your host. And today I'm here with the most very special guest you could ever imagine. Our very own co-host, who is also our only guest for today. This is our very lovely, very special, incredibly amazing Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hello, everybody. Hi. It's good to be back. It's good to hear your voice. It's just good to be here.
We could probably use this opportunity to address one of the very, very common rumors that we were reading online was that everybody on the ship was already dead, that it was a ghost ship.
Yes.
We had seen that quite a bit. People thought that it was everybody on the ship was dead. Nikki is very much alive.
I'm very much alive. I'm doing okay.
I think that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today, too. We're going to talk about a lot of the misconceptions that we read online. We're going to talk about you and your experience. I do want to make sure that we address that this episode is in no way an attempt for us to gain more exposure or more attention with our podcast. We are doing this episode for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's really cathartic for people who go through traumatic experiences to talk about it. That number one. I think the other thing, too, is that you have been approached to an extreme intensity by the media. You were saying that people that you haven't spoken to in 20 years are reaching out to you to get juicy details and gossip. I think you've been doing this on your social media, but you've been answering a lot of questions just in a more broad fashion so that you don't have to answer everybody individually because it is very overwhelming. And I think that being able to have it on an episode, let us talk about it. Also, I think that the Facebook group and the ATG community has expressed a tremendous amount of outpour of love, compassion, and empathy for you. And they just want to hear from you. We have a lot of people who are listening to this podcast now. And I got a lot of messages like, hey, I didn't want to message Nikki personally, but I wanted to see how she's doing. So I think putting it all out there in an episode is a great way to address the public, to address our friends and our family and the people who are listening to us, and also just to get some thoughts out. It's a great opportunity to clear up some misconceptions that we've been reading online and maybe give some reassurance because there are some people who have trips planned for these coming seasons and they're concerned. So I think we could talk about a bunch of stuff. You're cool with this?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
And I think that this isn't going to be a deep dive episode into the whole experience, but this is a check-in with Nikki and see how she's doing.
We will eventually do a deeper dive into everything that happened and my total incomplete experience, but I am actively opting to not do that at this stage because those of us who were on board have had a lot of discussions about these kinds of things, and we all would prefer to stay as anonymous as possible until everyone is through with their quarantine and everything has blown over a little bit. So I'm happy to discuss some of the more important things at this exact stage, but the full deep dive will come later. If you're tuning in because you want to get all of the juicy details, sorry, that's not what's happening.
This actually brings up one of the other conspiracy theories is that a lot of people were making comments that it was suspicious that people hadn't heard a lot from the passengers on board. They hadn't heard from the crew. You want to share a little bit more about why that was the case? Why did we not see a whole lot of information being put out there?
Yeah. So as most people know, there were a handful of videos about this experience that went extremely viral and very international. And that happened really early into this process. And those of us who were on board saw that occurring and were suddenly getting hounded by media and news outlets. I was tagged in a handful of videos from some of the people who went viral, and that led to me getting literally hundreds and hundreds of media requests. And then my mom made a comment on a Facebook thing, and then she got hundreds of media requests. And then I had an uncle who got media requests, and it was just really overwhelming. And that was kind of, what's the word? It felt very violating. So we all mutually agreed that we would just not say anything because we didn't know how the media was going to misconstrue our words. We didn't know what things people were going to start saying about us. And when you're going through something that intense, it's a lot harder to, it's really hard to go through something like this, right? But when you're going through something like this and then also reading comments online about how your boat should just get burned down or sunk or a missile should go or how we all deserve to die anyway, it makes it a lot worse. When we started seeing some of the backlash of the people who were already getting exposure, we all just kind of went, okay, nope, no thank you. I privatized all of my accounts. I made myself as anonymous as I can be on the internet for someone who's fairly on the internet.
You and I were in constant communication about all of this pretty much from the day the first passenger was sick right up until today. I got daily updates about this all the time. And then I was reading things on social media and other people's responses. And it was so much misinformation. And it actually gave me like rage. Like I was mad reading, like I was getting mad reading some of these comments. And you're saying all these comments about sinking the ship. I'm reading all these comments too about, oh, these are paid actors on the ship. And this is all because of the midterm elections and stuff. And you're like, dude, this is a Dutch ship leaving out of Argentina with 150 passengers on board and only 17 of them are Americans. And everybody's turning this into a political issue. And it was getting me so angry to read these comments. And we should mention one more thing before we kind of pivot on this. We're talking about the lack of speaking out to the media. That was also because Oceanwide had been putting out a significant amount of information, which you had relayed to me and said that everything they were posting was 100% transparent and timely.
It was the most Dutch thing I've ever experienced in my life. The Dutch people are known for being very direct and very honest and very just to the point. And everything that Oceanwide was saying and doing was exactly what was happening on board. There was nothing more interesting. There was nothing more exciting. There was nothing that they were hiding from anyone. Every piece of information we got, the public got very shortly after that. So there really wasn't much of anything for us to be saying online because it was all already out there.
I want to read something you sent to me because you were going to put a post up in the ATG Facebook group, and we decided that maybe it wasn't the best thing to do because there had just been a shift in some of the information that was going out. I'm not going to read the whole thing for you, but you did send to me. I want to give a massive shout out to the Oceanwide staff, both on board and in the office, who have been handling the situation. Every single step has been handled with dignity, clarity, and communication to the guests. They have been very open, capitalized very. They've been very open, very direct, very forthcoming every step of the way. That's the Dutch directness at its absolute best. Every single way that they've handled this should be a case study for keeping the public informed about a crisis situation. If I wasn't impressed with them before, I'm absolutely gobsmacked now. If you want to know what's going on, you can refer to any of the official press releases. They're completely factual and have no speculation or, pardon my language, bullshit.
Yep.
Which is, I think, really worth noting. And I, having worked with Oceanwide in the past, actually, people don't know this, but I was actually the very first expedition crew to work on the Hondius for its first Antarctic season. So I know that ship very well, and I know the crew, and I know the captain, and I knew a lot of people on board, and I know the office very well, and I don't expect any less of them. Oceanwide is absolutely an incredible operator in that regards. So that kind of wraps up a little bit about the media silence. I don't remember exactly what you wrote, but somebody in the ATG group commented on a post about it and said something, and you were basically like, straight up, there's really nothing more to read into it than just wanted to keep our mouth shut.
It's nothing exciting. It's nothing salacious. It's just that we saw the way that the media was reacting to the information that we were getting. And we collectively and individually decided that we wanted nothing to do with that. So we all just went, okay, well, I'm just not going to talk. Easy.
Fair enough. I mean, fair. That's absolutely fair. And I'm glad that you're taking the opportunity to speak here. And like I said, this is a surface level episode just to kind of check in on you. So we are here to check in on you. We are here to see how you're doing. What are you doing? Where are you at right now? Let's talk a little bit about your experience when you had to leave the ship. You talked to me about it and you said it was probably one of the strangest departures you could have ever imagined when you had to say goodbye to people. It was a little weird.
That was really challenging because normally when you do one of these expedition trips, on the last day or even on the last night, you have a big barbecue and a dance party and you get to have all of these big emotional goodbyes. And Then the day that you leave, you sometimes get a final dinner with your people that you became close with. Or I had plans to rent a scooter with one of my good friends and go around Cabo Verde, and I had all these big plans. But for this one, everyone was being repatriated to their countries of origin. So it was more like, okay, everyone has breakfast and you're having a socially distanced breakfast, so you can't sit with as many people as you could before. And then it was, okay, at 9 a.m., everyone from Spain is leaving, wave goodbye. Okay, great. Now waiting. Okay, now everyone from the UK is leaving, wave goodbye. And you couldn't hug your people goodbye. You just had to wave at them while wearing a mask outside while there's drones flying around and you know that there's long lens cameras on you. I was sad because my friends were leaving and I'm a very teary person, so I'm crying, but I don't want the cameras to catch me crying because I don't want that to potentially spin into some ridiculous story. So I'm every time I want to have a proper cry, I'm running inside and ducking just in case the cameras can see through the windows. And it was just such an odd thing. It was just so weird. And your friends are leaving country by country.
And you were telling me when we were talking about this, you were like, "Oh, so my military plane gets here at this time. What time does your military plane get in?" Right?
Yeah.
It's you're like, these are sentences that are being spoken on the ship right now, and it's wild.
Yeah,
wild.
Yeah. You're sitting there and you're figuring out how to spend your last day based on which country your friend is from, because oh, well, you're from Turkey? Cool, you're not leaving till 4. I'm going to spend time with my friend from the UK who's leaving at 11 because I'll have a few extra hours with you. It just sucked.
No, and you got to be a little cavalier in these situations, right? It's part of the coping process. So then you left. Your military plane. You were one of the last ones of the day, right? You flew a night flight.
We were the last ones of the day. There was actually about a 5-minute period where we didn't think we were going to get to leave on that day, because our plane was taking a really long time to refuel because it was a gigantic plane. And Spanish authorities had only given us clearance to leave in the daytime, and the sun was starting to set. And so there was this little moment where we were like, oh, we're staying on the boat another night and we're going to leave tomorrow morning. But then it all changed. That was another thing. We were sitting there. We got a call over the intercom telling us, oh, it might be tomorrow. And so we were kind of preparing for that reality. And then 5 minutes later, we get another call that's like, okay, your boat's actually coming. Go, 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 go. And it was like, you run, wave goodbye to the bartenders who I've become friends with, because of course I have. And then down the stairs, get all my PPE on, get on a boat, get on a bus, get on an airplane, fly to the US.
Do you want to tell us a little bit, how was the airplane?
It was a cargo airplane, which I've never flown on before. It was odd. It was all just really odd because everyone was in full PPE. All of the people who were working were in like head to toe proper like hazmat suit style clothing. And then there was all of this.
Just gonna say for our listeners, PPE stands for personal protective equipment. It usually involves eye protection, masks, and usually hazmat suits. So that's what we're referring to when we see PPE.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. It was really loud, and there was plastic up separating us from the pilot, and all of the staff was staying away from us as much as possible. And it was so loud you couldn't really communicate effectively. So they gave each of us a notebook and a marker. So if we had any questions, we could just wave and write down what we needed to communicate. And so we were just like flashing everything in that way. And when they wanted to talk to us, they had a megaphone. They had sandwiches for us that were terrible, which is not that different from a commercial flight, I guess. So that was familiar at least. And it was about a 10-hour flight. And then we landed and we got put into different shuttles and brought into our quarantine unit. And that's where I am now and where I'll be for the next, I think I have 38 days left.
I wish we were doing video so we could do like a little walkthrough, like an MTV Cribs style. This is Nikki's quarantine room. But I mean, there's been other people posting them online. I mean, go ahead, tell us, just give us paint us a little picture where you're at. You have fairy lights up, which is nice.
So two points that I want to make that I think are pretty funny. If you've been listening to the podcast for a little bit and listened to a few episodes, you may recall how excited I was about being on a ship for such a long time because it meant that I didn't have to do any cooking and that I didn't have to do any cleaning and that I got to be in the same bed for that long. Guess what is true again?
It was a 33-day trip, and then it's a 45-day quarantine minus. You get quarantine credits for the being on the ship, right? That quarantine officially started when the last sick person who showed symptoms was removed from the ship. You got about 6 days of quarantine credits, or does it start over? Did it change?
Nope. It changed. Our quarantine officially started the day that we arrived at this unit, which was May 11th.
Oh, that changes.
So that's when it starts, and it's 42 days, not 45. And that is subject to change. That is what is true today while we're recording, but this is obviously a evolving situation. So there are certain things I'm going to say today that are true that might not be true in the future. That doesn't mean that I'm lying. It doesn't mean that I'm making things up. It doesn't mean that I'm a paid actor. It just means that the information is changing. That's how science works.
The whole paid actor thing, I think one of the main reasons it keeps coming up is because in that one very viral influencer video, he had written things down and his eyes kept gazing off of the screen, out of the lens of the camera to read things that he had written down. So a lot of the suspicions were that he was a paid actor reading from a script that it was given to him. It's a little bonkers. It's a little crazy.
It's completely insane. He wrote things down to help guide him through what he wanted to say because he was emotional, and trying to relay information while experiencing high emotion isn't always the easiest thing. And some people need to write down their talking points in order to get them across effectively. So that's just a ridiculous concept.
I read it. So I still see it being written all the time. And now he's doing interviews on like newscasts. He spoke to Anderson Cooper, and he was on some other news broadcasts, and just the comments are always paid actor, paid actor, paid actor.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Okay, so now tell us a little bit more about the quarantine facility, right? How's the food? How are the accommodations? Is the bed comfortable? You have privacy. You have like I said, you got fairy lights up, so you've spruced up the place a little bit, So
yeah, so it's very similar to a room at like a Holiday Inn or something like that. It's got a bathroom with a shower. Nothing super exciting there. A full or queen size bed, I really am not sure. TV, dresser. There's, instead of a cuck chair, there's a cuck recliner. Can I say cuck on this podcast? Or should I rephrase? I'm just going to say, okay.
I apologize to the viewers at home. Half of them are going to have to Google it anyway.
The other additional things that we have in here, because it is a very self-contained unit, is that we have some gym equipment. So I have a spin bike. I have a set of weights. There's a Bosu ball in there. There's those like stepper thingies and a desk. So it was a pretty bare bones but comfortable space. But the nice thing is that because we're here so long, we're able to receive Amazon packages and packages from other places as well. So I have been shown an absolute outpouring of love from my friends in my community, just sending me things to make it a more comfortable space. So today, and I keep saying the phrase, I need more enrichment for my enclosure. I cannot stop saying that sentence. Today, I received a lot of enrichment for my enclosure. I got a essential oil diffuser from you, which was awesome because now my room smells nice. I got a more comfortable set of blankets. I got some fairy lights. I got flowers. I've gotten so many blankets. I've gotten so many packs of fuzzy socks. So it's really cozy in here now. And the other interesting thing that I was thinking about as I was hanging up my fairy lights is that I travel full time. I've lived out of my backpack for coming up on 3 years now. I haven't decorated a bedroom in years. I think the last time I decorated a bedroom for just me when I wasn't like in a partnership, the last time I decorated a bedroom for just me was maybe 2017. Been almost 10 years since I decorated my own bedroom, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun.
Did you have to like pay a security deposit for putting thumbtacks in the walls so they can like take it out of your security deposit there?
So we're not allowed to do anything that will damage the wall, but one of the things that they supplied us with is those like, it's like sticky tack kind of thing.
Blue tack, yeah.
Blue tack, yeah. Everything is blue tacked to the wall.
We did have issues with your Amazon packages though. We had like they all got delivered at the same time, but you got them like days apart. So you were mentioning things that are not quite efficient. You actually said what was the phrase you kept using on your Instagram stories? That they're
actively working on a solution. Yes.
So we talked about the quality of the food. You said, well, let's talk about how's the food, Nikki?
It's not the best. It's kind of a step above hospital food. This was a joke on my Instagram story, but they are actually actively working on a solution for that. The problem is that they have so many options and everyone is ordering different things. And so for the staff, and I my understanding is that it's mostly volunteers that are here. So everything that's happening is volunteer run. They asked so every day we have a town hall meeting via Zoom. And one of the things that's been brought up a handful of times is the food quality. And so they asked us to email them what our ideal meals would be for any given day, not necessarily from the provided list, but just in general, what would we like to eat on any given day? And they're going to take that information and see if they can find similarities and to adjust the food around what our needs are. So right now the food's not the best, but I do think it's going to improve as they have the opportunity to make it improve and as they get to know us better.
Are they giving you at least like healthy options? Are they giving, is it?
Yeah.
I hear it in your voice.
Every day for lunch, I get a double order of grilled chicken and a salad. The problem is that they only have ranch dressing, which is fine. But that is when I emailed them with my food request. I said, "Can we please get dressings that are a little bit healthier?" So again, we'll see. We'll see what improvements come along, and we also have the opportunity to like DoorDash ourselves something. So one of the passengers who's here at the quarantine unit is organizing a pizza night for next week. So she's taking all of our pizza orders and then she's going to get it all for us and we'll all have a pizza night. Even though we're, all completely separately quarantined, we can be together in spirit.
I was going to ask if you're I'm sure, you all exchange WhatsApp numbers and stuff when you were on the ship. And I just assume that you probably have a group chat with everybody in the quarantine, I would think, right?
Yep. Yeah, we have a group chat for everyone who is here.
It's definitely wild. It's wild.
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild. It's weird. And I keep trying to come up with words to describe it that are anything besides those two, but I just haven't found them yet. It's a very surreal experience to have lived through and to be living through. And I think that there is a chance that in like 10 years, the reality hits me and I'm like, what the hell was that? But right now I'm just kind of vibing.
I mean, we were talking about it sort of in our house and in the team. I was like, of all the people on our team to be there, I feel like you had sent me a message and you were like, I'm not going to get scared until I think I need to be. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, you had passed out temporary tattoos to keep the vibes high on board. And I was that's our Nikki. No one else can have her. She's ours. She belongs with us, the soul of the team. No, I just think, I think it's good to talk about it. And I think it's going to answer a lot of people's questions that are out there. There's just been such a wild amount of rumors and speculation. And I think one of the things that I do also want to address is the concerns that people are having for their upcoming trips. One of the big things that has been sort of cleared up now, and it's still not 100% confirmed that where the Hanta came from, and we're not going to speculate on it too much because that's for the professionals the authorities to decipher. The Ushuaia thing is a little debatable because the species of mouse that carries Hanta is not actually found in Tierra del Fuego. And I don't want to go down it too much, but I have a lot of experience with Hantavirus only because I have farmland in Patagonia and my wife and I spend a good portion of the year down there. And about 2 years ago, we were cleaning out the old house. We have an old house that's been there since the 50s and we live in a newer build house on the property. And, we had a caretaker our caretaker left the guest house, the old house, and left some food behind. And there was a lot of rodents that had gotten in there during the winter when we weren't there. And when we got back, we had to clean it out. And my wife and I went in there with like dustpans and we were sweeping off shelves and countertops and stuff of rodent droppings. And we had never heard of Hanta before. So we weren't wearing masks. We were wearing gloves. So we were telling our neighbors about how bad it was. And they were like, well, I hope you were wearing a mask. And we asked why. They said, because Hantavirus is very prevalent in our region of Patagonia. We're on the Chilean side. So get back to the point is that there was a lot of rumors beforehand about rodents being on the ship. And the second I heard that rumor, I immediately knew it wasn't true. There were people who were commenting on the original post saying that there was rodents in the HVAC system or something. And I want to use this opportunity to sort of temper any sort of concerns that people have regarding rodents on board our ships because I don't think people truly understand. And I know there's going to be a lot of people from the media who are listening to this podcast. They reached out to us hoping that they could use this podcast as a point of reference for articles. Mm-hmm. And I want to make this very clear that every expedition ship that operates in the polar regions takes not just sanitation on board, but biosecurity and rodent security incredibly seriously. South Georgia, which is the first stop that your trip made, had originally been infested with rats that were brought there by the whalers back in the 50s and the 60s. And those rats did a number on the bird populations in South Georgia, predominantly the Wilson storm petrel. These rats were just like going through the nests and they were eating the offspring and they were destroying the eggs. And the South Georgia government went well above and beyond to complete the rat eradication program in South Georgia. And the rats were officially eradicated on South Georgia in 2018. Not a single rat was left on South Georgia. This had given the Wilson storm petrel the ability to rebound, and now they're doing fantastically. Mm-hmm. But because of this eradication, every single vessel that stops in South Georgia is inspected for rodents prior to being allowed to disembark passengers. And your ship was no exception. You had a rodent inspection on your ship prior to disembarking in South Georgia, and you received a what?
100% rodent-free certification.
And
we got free champagne as a gift.
Wow, looking back now, looking back now, to the extent that there's normally a dog is brought on board, and there wasn't a dog brought on your ship. And I was asking around the industry why that was the case, and I was told it's because there's been a little bit of a flexibility in it in the coming seasons. That if your vessel was inspected by the dogs within 6 weeks prior, you didn't need to have the dog come back on board, which was the case with the Hondius in this case. So I did a little bit of research on that. And on top of that, if you look at any picture of the Hondius when it's in port, and any vessel that's in Ushuaia or in Punta Arenas and they're in port, you'll see that there's rat guards on the mooring lines. There's rodent traps all across the ship. And if, God forbid it ever came in on like the food, that was another big suspicion. Right. The crew on the ship knows to make a report about that because they all know the consequences of not being able to land in South Georgia if there's a rodent found on board, right? There's nobody's going to get in trouble. Nobody's pretending like they didn't find anything because or where they're going to get in trouble. It's not the case at all. So as soon as I read reports or rumors that there was rodents on the ship, I knew it wasn't true because I knew you had stopped in South Georgia and you wouldn't have been able to do that if you hadn't received a rodent-free score on your South Georgia inspection prior to going in. And that was done 4 days after you left Ushuaia and you stopped nowhere in between, right? It was straight from Ushuaia to South Georgia. For the people that we've received a lot of emails from people who are booked for future seasons who are worried about, maybe this could happen again or there's going to be Hanta on the ship. I can't stress this enough that one, the Hanta was not on board. I knew that before any authorities came out and said so. The World Health Organization also did a rodent inspection. They did not find any evidence of rodents on the ship at all. Right? Let's just temper that. So the couple, the original couple who contracted the Hantavirus, they very, 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 very likely they got it somewhere in Patagonia. The Ushuaia thing isn't necessarily 100% certain, but Hantavirus, especially Andes virus, is very prevalent in Patagonia. And being birders, they were being very much more exploratory than some other people be when visiting these regions. And I think it kind of brings up a point where I think that a lot of the media stir right now is sort of looking for somebody to blame for this whole thing, right? Because people died and it's tragic and it's horrific and we empathize with the families and we send our condolences to the families. And normally in this situation, when somebody dies, like there needs to be somebody at fault. And, when you go bungee jumping in Thailand and the the person forgets to strap you and then you die. Like there's an obvious person at fault, right? If you go parasailing in Mexico and the line snaps because it wasn't inspected thoroughly enough and somebody dies, there's somebody to blame, but in this situation, really like what you're saying about how well Oceanwide handled the whole thing, who there really is nobody at fault in this situation. It's just a tragic, unfortunate series of events that took place. Who are you going to blame? The Dutch couple for going out and bird watching? Like you can't blame them for that. This isn't their fault.
No, not at all. And that's something that I want to definitely make a very important point of. They are not to blame in any way, shape, or form. They didn't do anything rude or intentional or unkind.
Not at all.
They did what they loved. Yeah, all we feel is sadness because they were really kind people, and losing them was really hard. And everything that has happened beyond that is not their fault at all. And I think when something bad happens, you want to find something to blame because then you can direct your anger at something and it's not just sort of flowing about in the universe. You have a targeted thing. This entire situation doesn't have that. And I think that is potentially part of why there are so many rumors and there is so much speculation, because there isn't one clear and concise thing to blame.
Right. Like nobody's like, you can't blame the doctor for making a pneumonia diagnosis with such limited facilities on board. And also we'll reiterate, every vessel that operates in the polar regions has to have a minimum requirement for life-saving equipment, right? These are defibrillators. These are diabetic emergency medications, epileptic emergency medications. There's a whole series of stuff they're required to have. But I don't think people also understand how difficult it is to test for Hanta. Like, and it's so far from what you can expect that you can't blame the doctor. You can't blame the captain. You can't blame the crew for not suspecting it right away, especially the rarity of the Andes strain that spreads from one person to another. So
finding out that it was Hantavirus only happened because one of the passengers became ill and was medically evacuated from Ascension Island. That passenger got to Johannesburg and went to the hospital. And after 4 full days of testing, where they ruled out every single other possible thing that they could think of, they finally landed on Hantavirus. This is such a rare and offbeat virus that it took 4 full days of testing to discover. The idea that we could have found it on a ship is ludicrous. It's absolutely insane. Of course we didn't know that's what it was. We only found out because of 4 full days of testing being done. That's the only reason we figured it out. And then by the time we knew what was going on, the trip was nearly over. We got the announcement of what it was on, I think it was May 2nd or May 3rd. I don't remember exactly. The first person who passed, we found out, I believe, on April 12th. On May 2nd or 3rd is when we found out what was going on. That's through no fault of anyone. That's not through a lack of a chain of command. It's because that is just how the events unfolded.
People have to understand, you were on the trip that is being sold as visiting the most remote island in the world. I don't think the remoteness is really clicking with a lot of people of how far you were in the middle of the ocean. And there's no, like when you were in Tristan da Cunha, there's no airports there. There's no medical evacuations. A ship is really the only way to do it. So
the ship is the only way to do it. Yeah.
And I want to just want to circle back and reiterate that, when it comes to what like Nikki is saying, that people they need an outlet to place that blame. There's nobody to blame here. And you feel like Oceanwide did a fantastic job. As soon as it was communicated with everybody, all these measures were taken in place that were social distancing. You all masked up and you guys did everything that you were supposed to do to just sort of be as responsible. But I got a little bit of flashbacks from COVID. And then on that other note, you mentioned about people getting off the ship. The other big rumor or misconception that I'm hearing is that the people who got off in Santa Helena were getting off because they were dipping out. They were like, oh, something seriously bad is going on in Santa Helena. They wanted off the ship and they knew that something was going on and they needed to leave. That wasn't the case at all. And the news has been reporting that. That is not the case at all. This voyage was sold in different itineraries, and the long one was a combo itinerary. The voyage was sold as either from Ushuaia to Santa Helena, and then you would get off at Santa Helena. It's thinking about it like if you've ever been on an airplane before, where you have a layover, but you stay on the plane when half the plane gets off, and you stay on during the layover. That's what happened here. Nikki was on the layover that stayed on the plane, where everybody else had already reached their destination. They were scheduled to get off at Santa Helena way before the trip even left. So that whole sort of speculation is also completely infactual. And so
it's infactual and it's ridiculous, to be quite frank. Like it's just ridiculous. And the idea that the people who got off the ship were, because there have been several reports of people getting off the ship and continuing to travel and going from this place to this place, and oh, how dare they were skipping quarantine, they were bailing. No, that's not what happened. It's not what happened. They left on, I think it was April 26th. We didn't find out until May 2nd or 3rd, and that was the people on the boat finding out. That's when we got the information. It took some time for that information to get to the people who got off of the ship. The people who got off the boat didn't go into their home and into their communities because they're bad people and they don't deserve to be arrested. Like you said, they got off at their layover and they went about their day. And then a week later, they found out that their airplane was sick, and then they went into their quarantines. That's how it unfolded. And the idea that any of these people were doing things maliciously or selfishly is absurd.
When you were all on board and you all found out, what was sort of the initial reaction? What was going through all of your minds when you first found out?
I can't speak to everyone's psyche, only my own. My first thought was, what is Hantavirus? Because I'd never heard of it before, ever. And after, I mean, it didn't feel to me, I don't know, it didn't feel real, because that happened and I woke up the next day and was like packing my bag because it was my last day on the boat, and I was making my plans for dinner the next night in port and all this stuff. And there were some people on the ship that were like, we're probably not getting off tomorrow and we should all start thinking about canceling our flights. But half of us were of the mindset that we would be able to get off the ship, and half of us were of the mindset that we wouldn't. So it was just a lot of uncertainty. But the thing that I really loved about this time frame is how much the community pulled together for one another.
I was going to ask you if there was like factions developing on the ship, or was everybody sort of just one big giant unit?
It actually became more of a giant unit than I think it had been previously. There was so much of, checking in with people in the hallways that you maybe wouldn't or hadn't otherwise interacted with. You pass by someone in the hallway normally and you just sort of give them a nod or like, hey, how you going? In a sort of passive way. But then all of this started unfolding and it was a genuine like, hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Are you okay? And I thought that was really beautiful. It was really beautiful to experience. I think everyone just sort of rallied together to support one another however we could and however we knew how to.
That's sort of what I kind of remember during the COVID times. I remember I worked on the Ocean Victory during COVID, especially during the Omicron thing. And I remember we were the only vessel to have made it an entire season without an interruption. And a lot of that came down to an incredible staff on board. We also had this one woman named Nadine. She was definitely the one who gets a lot of credit for it, but it was the passengers. I think it was the passengers working together in that community sense for the greater good. And you would hear reports of the other ships during COVID, the ones who were getting canceled was because like, a bunch of people snuck out and they went into the hot tubs when they weren't supposed to on other ships. And then they passed COVID around, and then you hit too many people. So now you have to go into a quarantine. The vessel gets locked up. And I think the community on board, or the passengers working together on board, is because it's in everybody's best interest. Right. So it's great to hear that was the case. And it's not always the case in these situations, right? You got voices that are louder than others, and the ones that are saying, this is ridiculous and we should be getting off the ship. I don't have it. Why am I stuck here and stuff? But I think the communication that you and I had throughout the entire process was basically along the lines of just, you were all just kind of along for the ride. You were just trusting in Oceanwide. You were trusting in the World Health Organization. You were trusting in the people that were overseeing this whole thing. And that's another big part of it too. Like everybody kept making this like an American issue. And I mean, that's just because my social media is obviously, your social media is obviously very American focused, but everybody was making this an American issue and all about the CDC and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't want to read any of it because it really had nothing to do with anything. It was, like I said, it was a Dutch vessel leaving Argentina, going to remote islands with how many 19 different nationalities on board or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. There were only 17 Americans. Like there were only 17 people from the United States on board. It has nothing to do. It's a very American thing, though, to be like, it's all about us. No, relax. We're not the center of the universe, y'all. Take a beat.
So, absolutely 100% true. Sorry for anybody listening who disagrees.
That one might catch me some flack.
It's all right. I definitely think we dove a little bit more into it than we were going to, and I'm okay with it. I mean, do you feel okay with it? That's the most important part, right? And definitely wanted to address some of these things. Again, I really want to just temper any sort of concerns that people are having at home. Don't feel obligated to cancel your voyage, right? It'd be like canceling your voyage because somebody slipped and tripped and they hit their head on the lunch line, right? It'd be the rarity of it, the isolation of this sort of an incident is so rare. And I mean, I don't want to downplay it, right? I don't want to sound like we're completely downplaying or we're gaslighting and saying like, oh, don't worry about it at all. We have to understand that when we travel to the most remote places of the earth like this, we assume a risk. And those risks are no different than every time you get on the subway or everything we do in life. We assume a risk when we do it. And some are more risky than others. Some can be more calculated than others. Always going to be an inherent risk associated with something that you're doing that is outside of your daily routine. And I love to tell people that these voyages to these remote polar regions, they're perceived danger, but it's actually one of the safest operations I've ever been a part of. Everything is carefully calculated, but something like this is just so far outside the level of preparation you can have for preventing something like this. And the rarity of it happening should not deter anybody from feeling like they can't go visit the polar, like they can't go.
I mean, I'm getting on a ship in a couple months again. This hasn't deterred me from continuing and visiting the polar regions. It shouldn't deter you.
And even if you're going to be on a trip on the Hondius, just so you know, the Hondius is going right now through an entire sanitation process just to be safe. Hantavirus can't survive outside of the host for very long. It actually dies from UV incredibly fast, like within hours. So any fear that there's hantavirus lingering on the ship, I don't want anybody to be fearful of that. That's not going to be the case at all. And I think the vibe on the ship is going to be totally fine, right? We had a lot of this again during COVID. Like there were certain ships that were known as the COVID ships. You know, that time has kind of passed. We really want to, say thank you to everybody in the ATG community who reached out to Nikki, and showed some care and compassion. The comments on the post that we recently made were very heartwarming to read. But we do want to reiterate that reaching out to Nikki privately for details, inside stories, anything like that, please leave her alone.
I'll speak to that a little bit more directly. Even if you want to reach out to me directly with well wishes or good thoughts, I really do appreciate the idea behind that, but please understand I am trying to keep my friends and my family updated and abreast to everything already, and between all of that and everything else that I'm trying to navigate, I just don't have the capacity to talk to people I don't already communicate with on a regular basis. So I don't want to sound ungrateful because I genuinely, it means so much to me. My cup can only be so full, and it's pretty much at capacity right now.
I always tell my wife it's like jelly beans. Like every time I got a jar full of jelly beans, and every time I get a new piece of information, I have to take a jelly bean out to make room for a new jelly bean. And I just have no more space for jelly beans.
Yeah, I'm jelly beaned out for sure.
And do you have, I mean, I can't believe we came up an hour on this.
I know. Remember when we said this would take 10 minutes?
Yeah. Do you,
we were so young.
Nick, it's a tough topic because you know, we want to be lighthearted about it because obviously you're in good spirits and you're just in general, you're just a very like floaty kind of person. it is a tragic situation that happened on board. Again, we're sympathetic to the people who are currently still fighting for their lives. There are, and I know that one of the people that's currently quite sick was a good friend of yours. We're not going to talk about especially who they are, to respect their privacy. And it's a very sad and unfortunate situation. And we do offer, our sincerest condolences to the families and the loved ones of those who did pass away. And we do really, really want to emphasize how we're sending our thoughts to those who are currently sick, and to those of you who are all in quarantine, whether you're in the States, in Nebraska, or you're in your respective countries quarantine. There's a good chance that you'll hear this podcast because you're part of the Facebook group, or I'm sure there's going to be snippets of this put on news outlets.
I know
we're rooting for you. We really hope that everybody comes out of this completely and totally unscathed. We do know that there's still time periods where things can change with incubation periods and stuff, and we're all rooting for you, everybody who is on the ship, the crew as well. We don't want to forget to mention the crew on board, because there was 150 passengers, but it's about a crew of 80 who were on the ship, and these people were
oh my god, they were crushing it. They did such just an amazing, god, the crew was so good.
We want to recognize that the crew, one, is also when everybody else, like the passengers and stuff, when you were all choosing to either quarantine in your room or you have to socially distance during meals and stuff, they had to work, right? And they're still working, and they're still working, exactly. They were doing room service for everybody that wanted to stay in their rooms. Like they were absolute, they've always been, the crews on these ships are absolute rock stars. One other thing, and I don't know why this just came up now, and this is mainly just to address whatever media is going to write about this. They kept calling it a cruise ship. The news keeps calling it a cruise ship.
Oh my god, yes, I wanted to talk about this too.
And I really want to I want to decipher the difference between them. What these are not cruise ships. These are expedition vessels. And right. You were like, well, what's the difference? Well, one of the differences is you got 150 passengers and 80 crew versus 5,000 passengers and 5,000 crew. That's the main one. The second off is that these ships, there's no casino on board. There's no dance rooms on board. There's no nightclubs. There's not 12 restaurants. There's not a swimming pool. There's not like an adult only lounge at night. It's not what it's like on these vessels. There's a bar with 8 bar stools on it. There's a lecture room and your cabins, and there's outdoor space. That's about it. That's all there is on the vessel. There isn't like a lot of common area, right? So I think those were some of the other things that we were hearing too, is like, the socializing on the ship and all on this cruise ship because I've been on a cruise ship before, right? You think it's just like a bunch of people like day drinking and binge drinking stuff. These are not, these are expedition vessels. The expedition crew on this, it was a smaller crew than you're used to because it was a relocation. It was a repositioning voyage. But I saw the roster of them. I mean, like, you had PhDs on the team, like, the expedition team on these, they're all well educated, university grads with experience in marine ecology and history and glaciology and stuff like this. You don't have like the fun facilitators, right? There's not some guy with his whistle
walking around pouring shots in your mouth.
These are not that vessels. This is not the case at all.
No, it's more of a learning thing. It's very education forward. It's very environment forward. It's not a cruise. It's just not a cruise. Like,
no, it's basically like a floating classroom. You spend as much time in lectures and presentations on the vessel than you do on land, really. And especially with how many sea days that you get all these presentations and lectures and stuff. And that's the extent of it. This is not like a booze cruise for most people.
Not even a little bit. Yeah.
So I think that was another thing that I think would be a really important part for people to start including in their coverage, that these are expedition vessels, and there is a distinction between the two. And because of these expedition vessels, we also have something on board called biosecurity, which I think is also worth mentioning. Everybody's gear was inspected before. It's all cleaned with a solution called Virkon, which is a disinfecting solution that we use to clean boots and tripods and camera, or tripods.
And we're
and
sitting there with, you're sitting there with your borrowed boots and all your gear, and you're sitting there with a paper clip digging out and making sure there's no grains of sand or seeds or anything that could potentially spread something from one place to another, because the environments of these places are so specific and they're so special, and any little
fragile. They're fragile.
They're fragile. Yes,
that's fragile.
They're so fragile. So they take these ships take that stuff extraordinarily seriously. These are some of the most special places in the world. They are some of the most incredible places I've ever been. And the goal is to keep them that way.
And it's the mission, right? It's not just a goal, it's a mission. We every single time we step on and off the ship, we sanitize our equipment, our gear, our boots, our tripods, our walking sticks, anything that ever touches the ground. It's all getting sanitized before and after, because we do respect these places and we do want to leave them just as they were when we found them. So it's important that people do understand that, these expedition vessels are treated way differently than these cruise trips that they keep calling it a cruise ship. That was one of the things I really wanted to touch on. Other than that, I think I've really sort of touched on all the points that I want to do some clarification on. I'm also just so glad that we had the opportunity to do this. Thank you for doing this. I think the people at home are going to be grateful to get some information from somebody who's been on board. We did talk a little bit more about it than we wanted to, but I think that once the quarantine is over and I think you've had time to digest and process, and we know that everybody is hopefully in the clear on this, we can talk a little bit more about it. I also, because we do want to get back into our scheduled routine of recording episodes. I think it's a great way for you to pass quarantine. I think it's a really good opportunity for you to keep your mind distracted. And I think that it'd be really hard for us. We were originally going to just jump right into an episode and then just briefly talk about this in like as almost the cold opener. Then I just felt like how can the guest on the show?
It felt disingenuous. It felt like bullshit.
Yeah. So, and I just was wondering, like, how could the other guest on the show that we're going to have, be able to kind of just glaze over it a little bit, right? So I figured let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Let's just address it, and then we can get back to our regular scheduled program, and it'll be interesting because we'll be checking in with you every day in quarantine until you're out. I think it's good because we can sort of just check in with you periodically from time to time. But now I think a lot of the questions that people are going to have are answered. If there is a specific question that you do have for Nikki regarding this, I do think it's okay for you to send us an email. Don't reach out to Nikki privately. Just shoot us an email, info@thedrakeshake.com. If you got a very specific question about it, if it's something, Nikki's comfortable addressing, we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll just answer it in the next show, or, we'll just save it for when we do the deeper dive once we're past, the quarantine stages and stuff. But Nikki, we love you. We are so glad that you are safe and happy and healthy and keeping the vibes high, and your quarantine looks pretty cozy for now. So, do you have anything?
It's a very cozy place. Yeah.
Do you have anything that you'd like to share with the listeners at home before we wrap this one up?
Nope. Just thank you again, everyone who's reached out and who's sent well wishes. I do really appreciate it. And an extra big thank you to all of my fellow passengers and the crew and the captain and all of the staff who made this a much more tolerable thing to go through. I can't imagine having gone through it with anyone else.
I think that your words are going to mean a lot to the people that were involved. And I think, special credit goes out to Oceanwide, who did a fantastic job on this. All right, everybody. Thanks again for listening. If you have any questions, shoot us an email, info@thedrakeshake.com. And we really appreciate you, Nikki, for doing this. So thank you so much and have a good one.